Okay. Sorry, volumes might have been quite high there just to get started. Okay. This should be the regular volume. You can turn your volume up maybe a little bit. Okay. Let's see. Oh, no. That's on. Oops. There we go. Welcome to my studio. My name is Michael Markowsky. We're going to be making a painting today, maybe a few paintings. Today is sort of like the part 2 to the class we began last week on Bridget Riley. And during that class, I started a bunch of different paintings and didn't finish any of them, which is very frustrating for me. But you know, one thing I am happy with is that I feel like I demonstrated how to use tape and to make really nice sharp edges well. I'm very satisfied with that part of the lesson. But we didn't actually get to maybe part of the other point, which was to actually recreate the Bridget Riley shadow play painting, because I was so obsessed with making something perfect. The thing that I tell you not to do all the time, I did myself. So, you know, I need to walk my talk a little bit more. But I guess I really wanted to make sure that I could show you guys how to apply the tape so that we can get some really nice sharp edges. Like, so for instance, let's get this view. So this is the one that we did, and or that I began, and if there's some time, I'm going to finish this one today, perhaps with the help of my 16-year-old daughter, or 16-month-old daughter, to come in and add a little bit of finishing touches to it. But the results of this are quite satisfying, because all of these edges are super sharp. The only place where they aren't is, let me see, can you see this little area? There's a little bit of a bleed under here. So you see there's a little bit of blue paint that has come underneath. I know it's super, like, probably nitpicky to many people, but if you were to be doing this professionally, you'd really want to try to have a little bit better results than this. Like, you'd want it to be perfect, right? Especially if you're like Bridget Riley and you're selling these paintings for tens of millions of dollars a piece, right? You want it to be perfect, and people are going to expect it to be perfect. They don't want to go up to it and see all of the little places where you goofed, especially when it's possible to do it properly, right? So the reason why we got this little bit of blue is because, if you recall, this is the part of the painting where I only applied the blue painter's tape and did not apply any of the acrylic medium. So that's why the blue came down underneath the tape, and then afterwards I put some more tape on, and then I did seal it, and then painted the red. So that's why there's blue but not the red seeping through here, which, you know, right there proves why you would want to use a little bit of the acrylic medium to seal in these edges so that they're perfect, right? Okay, so let's get right to it, because what I think I'm going to do today is I am just going to use the time to do the Bridget Riley shadow play painting as quickly as possible. So it is it's likely that I'm going to have, it's going to possibly be a little bit sloppier than I would like it to be. But the point of these lessons is to try to get a finished painting done. So I'm going to go a lot faster, which means I might have a little bit of difficulty at different times, but I'm going to get a finished painting done in a couple of hours at the very least, right? So let's get right to it. So I'm going to paint on this canvas that I began last session. So this one, I got all, I just covered it with, I think this would have been a warm yellow with maybe a little bit of red, warm red in it. So it's a little bit on the orangey brown side, but it's still, I think this is going to be perfect for a Bridget Riley painting because it's also quite a nice bright color. So let's back this up. I'm also going to use some matte medium, which I used last time. I got my paint brushes, and I'll just get all my paint out. The other thing I went out and did is I went out and got some new tape. That's going to roll away. Because if you recall, last episode I could not find my tape that I had set out. And you know where it was? It was right underneath my clipboard. You know, at the beginning of each episode I do this. I put it right on top of the tape, so I spent the whole time trying to find this darn tape, and the whole time it was there right in front of me. Okay, so let's get right to it. Oh, the other thing, let's just tape these on. So I hope everyone's done all of their, if you're watching this in real time, then you know a couple days from now is Christmas. And I am going to be doing an episode later today. So I'm doing 2 episodes on today's in today's world. And so I'm filming today's right now in the morning, and then I'm going to do the Thomas Kincaid episode this evening, which I'm really excited about. I've actually been, well, we'll get into all that. Let's just focus on one thing, Michael. Okay. So let's get our tape out, and I'm going to start taping this. So if this is the very first time you're watching one of these episodes, all I've done is I've just taken a canvas. So this is the exact same brand. And if you're interested in knowing what brand this is, the link is in the description. I bought, I think, 12 or 14 of these for like 25 bucks or something on Amazon. So that if you click on the link, you can buy some as well. And all I did was put a little bit of paint on there. In fact, let's get paint on our palette too, Michael. It's funny, because I'm so used to, for the past 8 months I've been doing these episodes twice a week, Thursdays and Tuesdays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've shot a few of these on the weekend, kind of bonus episodes on the weekends. I did one in the evening a while ago. And it is really, like, disorienting to be out of my schedule and to be doing these on a day, sort of a day off or the irregular time. So I feel a little bit discombobulated trying to... It's funny when you get into a routine. Okay. Another thing in the last previous episode, I used a few different kinds of tape as well, and I was actually quite surprised that even this packing tape, the clear packing tape that worked really well. I didn't have any problems with it whatsoever. Here's the tape that I was trying to find. So it's just plain old masking tape. In fact, this is old masking tape. And sometimes I find old masking tape can be a little bit troublesome. It sometimes tears when you don't want it to tear. Of course, I also used the blue painter's tape, which works just fine. Another tape that I used was this. It's this white artist tape, which is a kind of I don't even honestly know what I think this is maybe used for watercolor painters. I buy it because I use it for sometimes joining different pieces of paper together that I want to be able to possibly peel apart, but maybe the tape could stay on there forever, and it's a low or non-acidic tape, so it won't affect the paper in any way. So it's a little bit more expensive. It's a lot like masking tape, and of course I'm going to use these tapes here. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to even set myself a timer because I got to stay on top of things here. I want to. Let me see. Let's get this clock in here. I know it seems crazy to set a 2-hour timer, but I want to get this painting done in 2 hours. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Where can I set this up so that I'll see it the whole time? I think actually really having a timer is really helpful, because then you don't sort of diddle-daddle around. You just sort of like, okay, I got to get things done. Let's move forward. Okay, the other thing I did is I got a tape that was maybe a little bit thinner so that I could have maybe a few more of these, what are they, prismatic rectangles on the canvas as possible. So let's just take a quick look at the Bridget Riley painting before I just jump in and start making a random painting, especially for those of you that are tuning in for the first time. So here is Bridget Riley's painting. I'm not going to get into her whole backstory and her biography. I did that plenty at the beginning of the previous episode. So I'm just going to go in and start making this painting itself. So let's see. Let's go right here. So with this tape, I am going to start putting some lines, vertical lines on here. And so the first thing, let's zoom back out a bit. In the previous episode, the first thing I did is used a ruler to kind of find the center. The way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to start taping from one side to the other. Now, it's possible if I don't do this properly that as I go from one side to the other, that if I don't do it properly, that these lines could kind of skew. So we'll just have to be a little bit mindful of that. So let's go to this view here. You'll also see I'm putting just tiny little notches of, I folded the tape back a little bit. Just going to make it easier to peel this tape off afterwards. That's just a little something that I've learned over the years as I do this. Especially when you're doing a lot of it, is you spend time trying to find the edge of the tape to peel it off. So what I'm doing here is I'm just I'm going to take every second line out so that this is going to be where the paint is going to go. Let's do this again. And you know what? I'm going to also show you some of the the paintings that fellow students in this class have created already and uploaded to the Facebook group. Okay, so you can I can already see this is getting a little bit. Does it look a little bit crooked, or is that just me? So now I'm looking at this and thinking, I'm gonna have this one tiny little strip on the side. I think, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna call a bit of a audible here. I want a little bit on both sides, not just on one side. So I know this is gonna slow me down a little bit. So this is why I didn't tape them down too hard, because I was, my mind thinking, it's always possible that you might want to peel these things off. Again, I did create a grid which you can print off and transfer onto your canvas, and I see a few people in the class actually went and did that, so you're more likely to get you'll get much closer to Bridget Riley's actual painting if you follow a little bit more structure than I'm doing right now. Okay, so let's peel a few of these off here. This one I think will go right here. And since these I haven't, I think we'll be fine. I'm not I can probably reuse those strips because it's not so much how sticky the tape is, it's if I seal it in properly afterwards. So let's fold all these back. Okay. Okay, so let's just take a look at this painting here. So let's say I'm going to keep it. Oh, you know what? I just realized I need to put one here. Okay, so that's much better. So once I get this done, I'm just gonna run my nails. And you could use a popsicle stick, would work really well for this. I don't care about what's happening inside the tape there. It's just the actual edges themselves that I'm concerned about. Okay. So let's get some... so what I just did there is I just took a little bit of the matte medium and put it here onto this little tray. And I need a brush. So I'm going to take this matte medium and I'm just going to start spreading it on here. I don't have to be too careful at this point with how I apply this. I just really want to make sure I get a nice seal on all of these edges. Okay, and I got my hair dryer here, and that's going to help speed up this process obviously as well. Okay, so I was just looking to see that there's no shiny spots anymore, which means it's nice and sealed in. Obviously, the longer I leave it, the better it's going to seal, because sometimes there might be a little bit of, you know, some blobs of paint that are, especially right along these edges, that don't dry properly. So that's just something to be a little bit mindful of. Is, again, I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible, which is not ideal for this process. Ideally, you want to take your time, and like I also started last class, I had a whole bunch of little ones on the go, which is also great, because that way I can just, rather than using the hairdryer, I just put some tape down, put a little bit of the medium on it to seal it, and then just set it aside, start working on another one, right? And then I've got all these, like an assembly line of paintings on the move here. So this brush I've been using for medium, so let's get a different one here. This is my only larger brush I have. Okay, this will do. So let's just take a look at this painting. So in order to get this painting done as quickly as possible, what I think I'm going to do is kind of go from yellow to red to purple to blue and then to green in terms of like the colors, so that I'm going to build up these different kinds of layers of paint. So the first color that I'm going to apply is, I've already got this yellow here, but I think I want something a little bit brighter, right? So I'm going to now take the white and let's take this cool yellow. So originally I had a warm yellow to start. I'm going to take this cool yellow, and the next thing I'm going to do is, let's get a different view here. Let's make it. Okay. I'm going to take the paint and I'm going to brush it in this way. See how I'm just going to go right along the edge, get to that edge. And I'm going to brush in. Right? So I'm not pushing the paint in this way. I'm just sort of letting it kind of bunch up against that edge. Now hopefully I've done a good enough job sealing this edge. Okay. I'm adding a little bit of white to this here so that it covers a little bit of the underpainting here. All right, so this is a pretty bright white. Or it's got a high tint, so it's. We'll talk about this evening when we look at Thomas Kincaid, who likes the white in the paintings to get that really glowing effect that he's famous for. But so the other thing you can do is sort of brushing over the tape. Brushing this way on the tape. The only thing you don't want to be doing is just pushing the paint in this way. You always want the brush to be sort of on a diagonal over the tape. Okay. So I got a couple strips of this yellow here. I'm just gonna change and add a little bit of the warm yellow. I know I've already got that a little bit, and I can preserve this original layer there. Put this one right next to it, just so I have a little bit of variation on my paints. And you can see, I'm doing a little bit of mixing directly onto the canvas, which is very un-Bridget Riley-like. But again, this swatch up here is going to be isolated from this one down here. They're all going to be slightly different. So it doesn't really bother me, especially at this stage, if this color transitions. And there's no reason, I could certainly have it transition. I could keep this whole strip there if I wanted, but by the end of the painting, ideally people won't be able to even make the connection that there was one color here and a different color there. They're all going to just look a little bit different. Okay, so let's do one more of these. So my goal is in the next 45 minutes to peel off all of this tape and kind of switch it around. Okay, so see what I'm doing right now is what not to do. I'm getting lazy because I'm going quickly. And this scrubbing method is exactly what I don't want to do, right? The scrubbing is what gets the paint underneath the tape. Michael. Okay, because I'm sure people are sitting there like, well, don't really see how could you get the paint underneath the tape? By doing exactly what I just did. It's that scrubbing which, spreads the bristles outwards, and that's how it's great for cleaning a pot in your kitchen. When you're doing a painting like this, bad. So, okay. Great. So let's get the hair dryer going again. Okay, so one thing I was just kind of pointing out is, often it's the paint on the edges that dries the last, and that's often, especially when you're peeling the paint, where you make some mistakes because you get that paint on the front of the painting. Okay, so another ridiculous thing that I did last episode is I put the diagonals going in the wrong direction. Right? I just was so into what I was doing that I wasn't really paying attention, and you think, oh, I'll just rotate it. No, they're still going in the wrong direction each way. And I noticed when I was looking at some of the paintings that people put up on the Facebook, obviously because people were thinking, oh, this guy must know what he's doing, so clearly we'll follow his lead. And there's a bunch of paintings where the diagonals are going the wrong, so my apologies. Okay, so let's see. If we want to do this, obviously there's way more scientific ways of going about it. I'm just going to, let's say, start on a corner and go on a diagonal. Now, I do have a tool behind me that's like a 45-degree angle ruler, but I'm not going to use it just because I don't think most of you will have that kind of a tool. So I'm just looking here. Does that look pretty close to the original? I think it's good enough. So let's put this down. I'm not going to, again, just like I learned the first time around, I'm not going to put it completely down. But I am just going to start putting some of this tape across. Okay, that one's not quite long enough, so this one's going to go right down here, I guess, eh? Oops. You want to probably see what I'm up to, don't you? So let's peel this one off. Again, you really want to make sure the paint that I'm applying is totally dry, because if it's not dry, when I peel the tape off like that, I could possibly peel off the paint I just applied. Or you might find out later on, because the paint is still wet, and you apply the tape over top of the wet paint, and what ends up happening is it seals in the tape, and no oxygen can get out on it, so it stops drying. And so you think it's nice and dry, and then you peel the tape off, and it takes a bunch of the tape with, or paint with it, because that paint just wasn't dry underneath there, right? So okay, all these crazy strips of tape running all over the place. Okay, and so just these little tiny edges down here. Get that down. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with this, so let's just rub the tape down. If I got these kind of longer pieces, I'll set them aside. Okay, see, that was a dumb move. That was a dumb move. So my instinct would be to just peel or put an extra layer of tape over top of it but I'm gonna move this one over, because if I have a really thick layer of paint there, or thick tape, it introduces the possibility that it won't create a good enough seal. So it's just worth doing things right the first time, rather than, especially at these early stages where it's so important. Right, what am I, okay, this. Okay. So let's fold some of this tape back. I tell you, like, I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times, and even myself, like, it's mentally like a pretty complex task, and it's really easy to kind of think you've got it figured out, and then you just start kind of going through the motions, and then that's when you realize, like, oh, I just goofed it all up because I wasn't paying attention. So let's let's get that out of that move. Okay. So this one is going to be a little bit tricky. Let's hold that down. It's going to be a bit of a mess there, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. Okay, half an hour to get all of this done. Okay. So these are obviously going to be much thicker than hers. Okay, well, again, this is a version of her painting, you know, because I'm just looking at, oops, let's get this version here. So you could see that her strips, you know, I probably could have used a thinner tape for these next marks here, but, you know, just in terms of time, it's just not going to be kind of feasible. So let's rub all this down. So I'm going to have thicker kind of boxes. Okay, and then likewise we're going to get the medium. Okay, so see what this was what happened. I left this brush in the water and it ate away at the glue that was holding these cheap brushes together. So that's one of the things. You use these cheap brushes, the quality is obviously not going to be ideal. Okay, so I'm putting the medium on here. Seal up all of these edges properly. We have a crew of people repairing the back stairs in the backyard, which is what all of that sound is. So it's not my stomach today. That's the crew fixing our porch. Another thing to think about when you're doing this is trying to avoid having big blobs of paint anywhere. Not only because it'll slow, like when I'm applying the medium, I want to avoid getting any big blobs of paint because that texture is going to build up. Remember, all of these are now going to be different colors. The paint under here is going to stay that yellow, so I'm not worried about that. But unless I want texture to be built up, I want to try to keep this layer of medium quite, as thin enough just to make a seal. So you could potentially just cover this whole thing very carefully, and that would kind of seal it all in and also ensure that the texture of the paint, because there are places here where I did not, like for instance right in here. There's no medium, because there doesn't need to be. I'm just sealing these edges. But it's possible that there could be a little bit of a buildup there that later on, if I want a super, super clean, flat look, that could become a little bit problematic. So let's just a couple brushes to clean here. Okay, so let's take a look at the original painting here. Just start thinking a little bit about what colors I want to put where. I could kind of leave this yellow. We could go for, I think, some. You know what? What I'm going to do is let's mix up some red here, or some oranges, and we'll kind of slowly start adding some onto here. So let's say I'm going to take this. Let's go for this brush here. Warm yellow and warm red. Just a little bit of white. Get an orange going. Gonna need more paint. Okay. So, where do I want to add this? So, ideally that red could go there. So we're going to add some blue here. How about some, well, this is going to be orange. Let's put it right here. Here I am trying to think I'm trying to do this perfectly, but let's just get it done, Michael. We'll get something, we'll use as many of her colors in this painting as possible. Okay, there's one. And almost has a similar color right here, so let's do that. One thing that you may notice is that sometimes when you do this, like you see I'm kind of brushing over these lines, because it kind of peels away sometimes the paint on these edges, so I don't want to overpaint this. Let's see, there's another one over here. Okay, so I feel like that's pretty good with some of these kind of orangey reds. So, next thing I'm going to do is we're going to mix a little bit of a purple. I'm not even going to bother washing my brush, even though I probably could or should, just because of my time constraints. So I'm going to go in here and start mixing a purple. So this is not a particularly satisfying purple because I'm being lazy. The reason why that purple is looking a little bit brown is because I had these warm colors on it, and then I mixed the cool red and these blues. So I've got all of these other colors together, which means they're all pulling towards the neutral core. Let's mix this again and we'll do it properly. As much as I want to do the painting as quickly as possible, I also want it to look somewhat like nice afterwards. So let's mix this again. We can take this. In fact, let's just see if we have this color anywhere that we want to add. the cool red. Where could we put this? Oh yeah. Just dropped my brush. That's the first time I've dropped my brush in a while. Okay, so a few slightly different colors, which is nice, having a little bit of variety here. Okay, so let's now take this and we'll mix that. See what a difference. Can you see the difference in these two colors? Like, I mean, yes, I'm a little bit closer to the blue, but it's no longer such a brown purple, right? Here, this is a little bit more of on the red side here. That's because I don't have these other colors on my brush while I'm doing this. Okay. So where can I apply this bit more purpley color? Let's put this in here. If I'm looking at this and I feel it's a little bit too yellow, I'm just going to add a little bit of white to it. And that's going to make it a little bit more opaque. Again, I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I'm applying the paint quite thin. If I wanted it to be to have really the nice, beautiful colors that she had, I would have to kind of take my time, apply thicker paints, maybe even a second coat of a color like this, especially if I don't want to add any white to it. Come on. It's a little bit tricky to do this with such thin paint, but okay. I'm just not happy with that. I am going to make it a little bit thicker and just blow dry it to oblivion here because I want this nice, beautiful purple. Okay, so this is driving me crazy. So what I'm going to do, let's just... So what was happening was, as I kept trying to apply this paint in here, but every time I did it, I was like scrubbing paint away, that wet paint. So by blow drying it a little bit, it's now dry. Yeah, look at that. Now I can go over top of it with the color I want. There we go. This one I'm going to have a bit more of a lighter purple here. Oh, look at of that paint. Surprised me, I had some extra paint on my brush here. Here's somebody trying to deliver a package at the front door. I think my wife is out at the park with our daughter, so I could run and get it, but then I'd have to unplug a bunch of stuff. It's just like, let's keep on moving forward here. Do I want any more purple on here at this point? I think I'm okay. So I'm going to just take some paint off this brush. And let's quickly move to some blue here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this paint there, let it dry for a couple seconds. And then give it a bit of a blow dry so I can get this nice deep blue on there. Let's see, what could we do? Let's add, sort of, before I wash my brush, I'm trying to think of colors that I can. Really need to pick up the pace here a bit, so. Or hopefully that's not the construction crew. So let's just get a little bit of this blue on here. There we go. Look at that. Much more beautiful. Nice. Sure, I'm getting it right into the corners. So this is really helpful to kind of see, I think, what I'm doing here is by taking the blow dryer, I can put a second layer of this paint over top of that area so that it's nice and opaque, but I didn't have to add any white or black to make that happen, which is what we often will do in order to make something a little bit more opaque, as we go like, okay, well, in order to get it darker or to cover something, what I'll end up doing is just add black or white, which is going to help really cover things, but really changes the color. Okay, so I'm going to start peeling some tape off. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to peel off the diagonal strips, the second set of strips I put on there, because I want to continue using the vertical strips without having to place them here. So let's see this moment of truth here to see if we're doing everything properly. Look at these. Beautiful. Good job, Michael. Okay, so even though we're going quickly, we're still getting some pretty good results. So, let's see. There's another strip here. And the tape that I just peel off, this is garbage. Don't try to be too frugal and to try to reuse that. It's just going to drive you nuts. So. Beautiful, nice, sharp edges. I'm also making sure, like, my fingers, I want to try to keep them where there's tape. I want to avoid putting my fingers, which could have paint on them, anywhere else on the painting. Right, because you don't want to go to all this trouble of doing really nice taping and then to kind of get a little sloppy as you're peeling the tape off. I mean, I know how exciting it can be, but it's the temptation is there to just kind of go a little bit nuts. So, oops, make sure. You do want to make sure, like that little bit of tape that I peeled off, you want to make sure that all that comes off, because it's usually right at the very end when you're kind of doing, where you realize, like, oh no, I just kind of goofed on that area. What was I thinking? All right, like there's this little bit of tape here. Just take a moment. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening there. So this is, it's a little bit of, it's mentally a little bit of a challenge to figure out what's going on visually. Like, I think this was where was my original top? And I'm a little confused as to, right? So once, which one was I hoping was going to be the top and bottom? I'll have to, I think this is, in fact, let's just make a decision right now. Where's my Sharpie? I think this is how I was painting it, wasn't it? So I was thinking about some of these oranges side by side, right? Telling you, it gets confusing, right? You know, you start doing this. Okay, I think that's right. So I'm just gonna take a moment here, make a little arrow. That's up to avoid that same thing happening again. Okay, I'm just gonna blow dry it one more time before I move on. Okay, so the reason why I'm blow drying it again is sometimes you peel the tape off and you have these little ridges where the tape was and the paint kind of built up there, and then now that there's no tape there, it can kind of like they fall and they collapse, or you brush your finger over it and you create these smudges. As well, we are going to put some tape over the paint we just applied. And I want to make sure this is as dry as possible so that when I put the tape over there, I'm not going to peel any of this paint back. Like, this still feels a little wet. Okay. So let's now, I'm going to put tape over top of the previous . So this again is something you want to just take your time doing. All right, because now I'm going to paint in these areas. If I want. Now I can leave some of these areas blank, right? Remember I painted them yellow, so it's not like I have to paint on them. This is also why you don't want to use like a duct tape to do this. Duct tape is great for a lot of purposes, but it also it'll leave residue on the painting, which you probably don't want, like sticky glue on the surface of your painting. If for no other reason that it's going to attract dust and like it'll stick to, and then you're like, oh, I'm just going to take a rag and wet rag and try to clean it off, and then you start wiping paint off, and then you have one of those situations like you know, that church in Italy where that woman was trying to restore the painting of Jesus, and it turned into like an international incident where the face is, because she just wiped all the paint off, right? She's like, oh, I'm gonna restore this. I'm just going to give it a nice little clean. Oops. Okay, so let's just... I'm going to take all this tape, fold it back. You can see why having this tape, these little tags like that, make it much easier to remove the paint or the tape afterwards. Ah! Okay, you might have to... Deborah there, thanks for watching it. Sorry I didn't get to your questions. You're taking off so that you could stay awake for the session this afternoon. Okay. Okay. Let's just take... see, this is why that little arrow... So this is supposed to be the top, right? It's supposed to be this way. You'll probably find out I've rotated it a few times unnecessarily later on. Okay, I got an hour on the clock. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but... Actually... before I... Let me see. I'm just going to... My wife and daughter are going to be back here in a moment. And I want to be able to have her help me, my daughter help me, finish the painting I began last week. Just to show you guys a little bit of a fun way of approaching this tape painting process. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside before I put any... Okay, so with this one, let's see, do I have enough tape? Well, let's use this blue tape, or green tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the tape across here. And I'm going to cover up these edges. And I can also, you know, remember I was saying I goofed a little bit, or I didn't put the, I didn't goof, I did it purposefully. But see these areas where the blue snuck underneath the tape? I can fix that now by just painting this strip properly, doing it the right way this time around. So just like anything with painting, even if you make a mistake, there's almost 99 out of 100 times there's a way of resolving that situation and making it work. Oops. So if there's a little area like this, I'm just going to take a bit of tape in the opposite direction. And that way I can still get my little tab to pull up. Okay. So this part, you know, when we're applying the tape over top of other areas here, it's really important to make sure you're getting these nice edges, and you really take the time to run your nail or a popsicle stick or what's called a bone folder over top of them, so that, in fact, let's do this one first, so that you create as a sharp of a line as possible. And it's more important the further you get into the painting that you do this. The first few layers aren't so important because you're going to be taking other paint and kind of painting. You can be pretty sloppy those first few ones because you know you're going to be painting over top of those layers. Oh, it looks like some of this medium's drying here. The other reason why we're using the clear medium is that if some of this gets underneath here, it's going to dry clear, and it'll be mostly invisible, even if it sneaks onto the previous color. Now, having said that, it still is not desirable, right? You still don't want that. You don't want to have like a blotch of slightly shiny or slightly matte paint there, because it could still look a little bit strange. So we want to try to hide that as much as possible. And part of that is just doing both the way that you apply the paint after this layer and being careful not to get the paint underneath the tape. But it's also a little bit of, you know, running your nail along those edges kind of helps. So you're probably like, what is he doing? So this, it looks like this has started to dry quite quickly, and I'm getting these kind of blobs of paint dry, kind of like scabby, like kind of textures on here that I don't like. And that's partly because I just put too much of this medium onto the cup to start out with, which was not a wise decision. You know, you really only want to put as much paint onto your palette as you're going to need at the time, you know, for the next like 20-30 minutes of painting. Otherwise, it's going to start turning into its solid form quickly, right? Looking at your painting from an angle like this is really helpful. Like I see a few places right here where I didn't get any medium, right? I wouldn't have known that unless, like, I thought I was pretty much done until I turned my head onto an angle here to double check. Sure enough, I hadn't put any medium there. And you know, I just realized now, which is not which is also kind of stupid, is I spent all this time painting yellow first, and now I've just completely covered it. I mean, this will dry clear, so I don't have to, I mean, I guess I'm just a little disappointed in myself that I should have, if I was moving more slowly, I probably would have left a few of these and not painted on them. So that, but again, it's just having a little bit of matte medium on top of a layer of paint isn't such a big deal. But ideally, it would be nice if that color was just on its own, because now there's a slight little... Okay, so that's all ready. Trying to think how I want to approach this with our daughter. I think when she comes down here, I'm gonna let her kind of go wild here, I think. Okay, sorry, I'm just zoning out while I'm thinking about how I'm going to do that. Okay. So, what's up? This is up here. So you can also see how confusing this can be. Now that I've got this green tape over all of these colors, trying to remember what I'm looking at and what goes where is a little bit tricky. Like, what colors are these supposed to be? Like, what color is this? I don't quite remember offhand. I think it's supposed to be, it's a darker blue, perhaps, or purple. So that's why, like, if you're so obsessed with trying to do this perfect, you're just going to run into, like, roadblock after roadblock, because it's going to be tricky. Hello? Oh, do we have the artist? Okay. Hey, kiddo. So, I'm trying to think. I haven't quite fully thought about how to do this. Yeah, oh yeah. I just got us ready right here. So, what we're gonna do. Okay, is that close? It can get a little bit of paint on them, perhaps. If we get it into the sink immediately.
I'll take this sweater off.
We'll just be a couple of minutes. I think we'll maybe get her hands a little bit dirty and her feet a little bit dirty.
Should have thought about this before.
If you want to take a couple seconds to. It's cold on that concrete. Okay. So.
Here she is.
I wonder if we should put her in her chair, do you think?
I have no idea what you're doing, so you tell me. You tell me, Daddy, whatever you want. Oh, her pants are down here.
Oh, yeah. Or do you think maybe we're just, what's the best way to do this?
In a happy mood.
Oh, kiddo.
We thought we heard the hairdryer going down here.
So which do you think would be best to do? Yeah, we'll do hands and then we'll do feet afterwards, and then I can help you wash her off in the sink.
Should I go get some stuff to wash her hands and stuff then?
Like some
Clogs?
cloths. I do have lots of rags, tons of rags, but
You just tell me what you need me to do, because I don't know what's going on.
me neither. I don't know what's going on. Okay, Edie.
There's Daddy! There's Daddy!
Look at you, adorable. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna set you down here. Okay.
Edie, where are you?
We're making a painting. We're making a painting. Okay. So, what color do you think we should put down here? What's your favorite color so far, would you say?
She likes all the colors. Blue.
Okay. So, let's get some blue here. We'll get a bunch of it. Yeah, get your fingers in there. Okay. And here, I'll get you, hold the paintbrush. Yeah. Why don't you go get it? Huh? Here's my phone. take it right here. Smudge it right all over.
Good job, Edie. Pretty blue. Edie? Whoa!
Don't put it in your mouth. Okay.
She's like, what is happening here? What is happening, huh?
I'll get a little more blue.
She's really wanting to get that in her mouth.
I know. I'm trying to check. Okay.
Oh. Good job, Edie. Edie, look your hands. Edie's painting with her
Yeah.
hands.
Good job, kiddo. Okay, let's see. Let's get a different view here.
Might have to have a little bath before we have our nap.
Should be able to wash this off. Okay. And then let's get some handy wipes or some right there. Maybe let's go right into this here. Maybe we'll just do hands today rather than hands and feet.
Wow, looks great, Edie.
Okay, we got enough paint here. Okay, I don't think we need any more new paint.
Oh, it looks like people are able to watch even though it was kind of last minute, eh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Do we want any more?
That looks like beautiful painting.
Okay.
So good, Edie.
Yeah.
You're such a good girl. I look like a bum, but hopefully people won't see me
Great.
too much. I haven't showered or anything yet.
Good girl.
You're so patient. You're so patient, Edie. Oh, those look fun. Those look fun. Shauna says you should frame this one, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't we?
Should. Okay. Just clean this area up.
You're being so patient, Edie. You're such a good girl. You're in a very sweet mood today, luckily. A very calm mood today.
Yeah, what a good girl.
You got paint all on your fingernails. You have paint
A
everywhere.
real artist.
A real artist. What a beautiful baby. Covered in paint.
Okay. Do I want to push it my luck at all?
Well, Michael always wants to push his luck with
I'm just
Edie.
trying to think of. I got these other ones here. Could we do some stomping, or is that? Do you think a disaster? Wait, you think it's a disaster? Okay. How about maybe could we do? We just got her clean. I think that's good. Let's. Before I'm trying to think, I'm gonna cut my losses Or not losses. Super gains. Okay, kiddo. Thank you so much for helping me.
Hey, can you wave? Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. With a big wave? She's like, who am I waving to?
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, people. Bye. Bye. Good little guy there.
Oh, thank you, love.
Of course. Bye, Daddy. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye, Daddy.
Have a good nap, kiddo. We'll get you to help me do more stuff in the future.
Bye,
That was
Daddy.
great.
She's waving. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Happy holidays.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That was something I've been thinking about for a while. So, let's just take a look at what we've got here. So this is the painting that we began last episode, right? So now I've got my daughter's handprints all over it. And I think I'm still going to actually, I was going to say, well, you know, let's just, it would have been, well, I was going to say, I should bring her back down here for the reveal because but I don't think she's going to be too impressed. Okay, so I'm just going to peel this tape off. I mean, there's lots of things I could do here, but now that because of the way that we kind of painted, it's almost impossible for me to see what was, you know, my original lines here to do any more taping. So at this point, we're just going to peel this off. Okay. So, here's the painting so far with the assistance of my daughter helping here. So, I mean, I love all the finger painting. All of that I think worked great, and you could see I also have the original strips are well preserved as well. A few things that I'm noticing right here. I'm not sure if this will show up too well, but let's see. You can see, where is it? See how there's this little strip here of paint? That was clearly because the way that I applied the tape, and I remember when I was doing this, I was doing it in a bit of a hurry, right? Is it actually, I went a little bit over and rather than right up to that edge, which means it's left this little bit of a border. Now, it does drive me a little bit crazy that that happened, and I'm just being super nitpicky. So there's different things I could do. I could retape this and fix that, because redoing this is gonna be a little tricky. But I could also add a little white strip of paint or black paint there. Now that this has sort of gone in its own direction and has its own life, I mean, there's lots of little things I could hand paint it. I could put a Disney character right in the middle. There's tons of different options here. But I think I probably will end up adding more color to this. Like, it feels a little bit of like a blah painting at the moment. As much as I love my daughter's addition to it, I do think I want it to be a little bit more bright, and so I probably will work on this a little bit more before I call it a finished painting. Okay, so now I'm a little bit further behind than I was planning on being. I was hoping to be done here in half an hour, so I kind of took a half-hour detour. Not deserved. Time well spent. But it just means that I'm looking at my timer that I set. I'm gonna have to add an extra half hour back onto the clock. Okay, so let's just take a second to look at the original Okay, so what colors do I want to add here? I think, to be honest, one of the things I'm not going to be so worried about getting the colors in the right place, because it's going to be very hard for me to tell at this point. And then I've got these other strips that are still completely untouched. So there's still actually a lot of work left to be done here. So I'm just going to start actually just moving a little bit faster and adding color, maybe in places that are a bit more random. Okay, so I think I'm going to put a kind of a pink up here. Okay. There's one pink. Always remember to get my edges. Some people will put tape along the edges to help, which is obviously, if you're painting on a canvas, that works. When you're painting on a canvas board, you can't really put tape. It's just so thin. You could afterwards, when you're done, go around and put like black paint or a particular color on there. Okay. Let's take a bit of red and let's put some red. Right there. I don't know if I had any red before, and there's not really any red in this painting, but okay. Donna says, I would just add a bright border on her work and frame it for her. I think I might do that, but add, rather than one solid color, just like brighten up the squares around it. I like that. Donna says, my 43-year-old daughter still has some of her stickers and shares them with her daughters on special occasions. Cool. Oh, sticker. I must have missed some of the conversation back up there. Make stickers. Making stickers is really cool. I've done that in my classes at Emily Carr. I've had students make their own stickers and stick them up in different places. I like the idea of non-traditional art, of art that it doesn't have to be in an art gallery. Okay, let's do some blue. Actually, while I got this blue right on my brush, let's just use it. Where should I put it? Let's put it right here. Gonna blow dry that and go over it later. Let's save that. Just go right in with some white then. See, I just did. I remember I keep telling you not to do things, and then I do myself. That scrubbing thing is. That's what leads to mistakes, Michael. But we are going to be talking a lot about mistakes. And if next week when we do our Bob Ross New Year's Eve painting, because the king of the happy accident. Okay. You know, I don't think I have any green. I haven't mixed any green yet, so I'm just going to do a little bit of that right now. Not the most exciting green here. Do I even want to put this down? And then I just want a bit of a... Which I might leave these like this. I might just peel everything off at this stage. Or, you know what? Let's do... I live with it. If I can fix it, let's deal with it. Let's do something with it. Hey, where did that red come from? Okay. Oh, yeah, Donna said the stickers from when she was a kid. That's really cool to make stickers when you were young and then still have them 43 years later. Still a few areas that are still a little bit wet, so let's just Okay, so let's get this moment of truth. Here we'll peel. We're going to peel basically everything off. I'm going to peel all of the diagonal pieces off first, since they're on top. I got all my diagonals off, so now let's peel off. You know, as I'm doing this, you know, one of the things I think about is we talked about how difficult it is to do this when you can't see the paint underneath, right? Like, that's why having a little bit more of a plan going into it is really helpful, because, you know, Bridget Riley, she would have made sketches and designs, and these days would use computers to help kind of create the initial plan. And then having somebody else who's really, really good at this do all the hard work, right? Of getting the tape properly. Because, and we'll look at a few instances here where some of the tape, I mean, this looks pretty darn good, especially considering the speed we're working at. But there's a few little places. I guess it doesn't show up too well. It's pretty, but you can see, look at these little gaps. So that's just because when I put the tape down, I went a little bit further over when I covered, and it's so part of this was, you know, it's got a nice sharp edge, but it's also not as maybe perfect as I would have liked it to be, right? So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put tape over top of these spaces, and I'm going to sort of do the process again, but I won't be able to see what's underneath these colors. So that's why just sort of randomly putting colors works pretty darn well, because you don't really know what's there anyway unless you really have a very solid plan going into it. And, you know, we are, you know, using Bridget Riley's painting as inspiration, but of course, I'm moving as kind of quickly as I possibly can in order to get this painting done within the shortest time period possible. If I had weeks to do this, I would be really, really careful, and I would really be thinking about, you know, which colors are going to go where, about doing this taping properly. Like, I can even see just as I'm doing this, you know, you really want to, it's really important to get the tape in the exact right places, otherwise you get those little gaps again. And I have a feeling I'm going to get a few more as I do this, but I'd like to try to get this painting done in about 45 minutes. So That's a bit of a race. Race to the finish for sure. I'm sure people who've watched, anytime I give an estimated time, you can just tack on another half hour. I was thinking a lot about this the other day, is that, when I began doing this class, it's like, okay, well, I want to go just basically kind of teach you the very introductory, the simple ways of doing things. Let's just get a painting done and not worry about it. And then as I've progressed, also mirroring, I think, as you guys, as you're learning more and more, I also start to get like, well, you know what? Instead of just doing the absolute basics and just getting it done, if I put in an extra, like, hour here, I could make something that I would be really, really proud of having in my house on the wall. And my hope is that many of you guys also start feeling that about the work. Like, oh yeah, I just started this class because I just wanted to learn how to paint, and the first bunch of paintings I did were, whatever. I'm probably not going to show them to anybody, but I learned some valuable lessons. And then as you progress, you start going, oh, wait a minute, this painting turned out really good. I'm gonna hang this in my kitchen. I'm gonna put this over the couch in the living room. I'm gonna give it to somebody for Christmas or a birthday, right? And then the wheels in your mind start turning, like, you know what? I could make a few more of these. Maybe instead of painting Suzanne Valadon's cat, I could paint my cat, and then I could, sell them at a local fair, or, start an Etsy store, etc., right? Which I think is really exciting. Once that bug catches you, the art-making bug, it's, then you're hooked. Then I'm sorry, then you're making art for life. Okay. Now that I've got these previously done lines on here, it's a little bit easier to line things up. Again, I'm cutting some corners right now. I could put another strip in between here and do this really perfect. But I also have a little bit. I had a muffin for breakfast. I want to be able to okay, see, this it's too dark. I can't see, so I am going to have to do it a little bit more properly. Yeah, what did I just do here? That's I can already tell there's going to be a few little goofs just because of the speed at which I'm doing this, but it's funny. Now that it's making me just remember one of the books that I assign my students to read every year. And it's called Art and Fear. And one of the things, the literal quote in there is that perfection is the enemy of art. And when you get obsessed with being perfect, generally what ends up happening is you can get totally afraid of making art. You just grind to a halt and you get afraid of doing anything because you're afraid of making mistakes. And in that book, Art and Fear, I really talk about the importance of quantity over quality when you're learning. When you're learning, I want to stress that for sure, that when you're learning, you just want to move through your paintings at a relatively fast speed so that you're not really obsessing over trying to do things perfectly, because actually by the process of doing things quickly, you're learning, and there's no real point in obsessing over it because it's not going to be a perfect painting anyway. It's not something you're going to want to, likely most of your student artwork is not likely going to be the stuff that you're going to want to keep forever. Although maybe, again, some in this class, you're probably creating some great things. But probably, again, the very first ones we did, you know, a Matisse painting or the Mary Pratt painting, probably like, yeah, now in retrospect, I could probably do these paintings much better. Which is exactly what we want, right? And perhaps that's an activity you may want to consider doing. Okay, where's my medium? Did I not put... Okay. So I think I just realized that I did not put any medium on these vertical stripes, which is, you know, I'll have to do that the next round, but anyway, it would have been nice if I had done it the first time around, but I see a few little gaps there. That's going to be something that's going to drive me crazy when I look at it later on, but ideally I like to get, looking at my clock, in half an hour I'd like to be able to peel all the paint off and sign it. I don't think that's going to happen, but I want to try to move at that kind of speed here. Because I also think, especially this painting, if you've never done a tape painting, the likelihood it's going to turn out exactly the way you want, I think, is zero. There's just no... the first time you've done it, though, it's impossible. Because you don't even really quite mentally comprehend what's happening and how to do it. It takes a few times to do it, so the first time, just really let yourself go and get it done, and then you can see, oh, now I get it. Now that I know how to do it, I'm gonna take those lessons and do it again a second time way more carefully. Okay, so let's see. Just thinking about some colors and where I want some of them to be. So again, that's why it's helpful to put a little line there so I remember which is up. Just because looking at, you know, I want to put some kind of darker blues maybe in these areas, and let's just do that right off. All right, so I want some darker blues maybe here and here. So dark blue. I'm going to take this, and not only that, I'm going to take a bit of the both blues, and I'm just going to mix them right on. Again, this is not how Bridget Riley would go about things. As I have stressed a number of times, she would not be mixing paint directly onto the canvas like I just did here. She was way more methodical about things. But when you're up against the clock like this, you have to make a few concessions. Okay, do I want this anywhere else? I do think I want... So one of the things I'm trying to do is vary the color very slightly as I go around. Because it's likely that some of these colors are going to be underneath the tape right up against the one I'm painting right now. So, which is totally fine, and you can see in hers that there are some colors that are the same up against one another, and I have manipulated this image a little bit to simplify it as well. But having a slightly different color next to one another, I think is going to be satisfying for the viewer to see, because it just won't look like one big block of color. Look like, oh, those are two blues, but two very similar but different blues. Okay, so let's see. What if we just add a little bit of white to the color we were just putting down? So this is... You notice, like today's class, I'm not really you know, I'm not explaining how I'm making which such and such a color, just because it's kind of random, right? And it doesn't matter that you get the same colors that I do, right? If you were trying to follow this episode and paint along and do exactly what I'm doing, I think it would just be maddening, right? I'd much rather you just kind of throw your hands up and go, you know what? I'm just going to put my colors wherever I darn well want them to be. Good. That's exactly what I want you to do. You don't want to forget about these little tiny ones, little pieces. Okay. Clean this brush a bit here. Let's go into... I might leave a couple of these. Do I want to leave them blank, or could even just... So a little bit of yellow there. I don't want to forget about my yellow. Maybe an orange is in order. Don't be scrubbing, Michael. My goodness. You're the worst student in this class. You're just not good at listening to directions, are you? Another scrubbing. Michael. Okay, that's kind of nice. I don't have any white in there, so that was good. I got... It's not white, but in fact, maybe we should actually put a white in here. Clean this brush off. Get something approximating. Okay. So. Okay. So let's go to peel off. I'm just going to peel the diagonals off. Nice. All right, I don't want to peel off the vertical lines because I'm going to keep them in that same place. See a little bit of blue came under there. That's because I'm going so fast. Get a little sloppy. Another one there. I said I'm going a little faster than I would recommend. So none of this is surprising, but okay, so there's a few little areas where blue has snuck under. I don't know if it was the blue, why that happened, but just because I was being a little bit fast and a little bit sloppy. So I'm going to blow dry this again so that I can put tape over top of all these strips. Oops, and there was, let's see, one more down here. The floor is covered in tape. Okay, so let's put the tape on. I'm not too concerned about that paint that went under the paint at the, or sorry, I'm not too concerned about the paint that went under the tape, as I mentioned, because it doesn't so much, when it goes under and there's, you know, I still have this other color there, that's all right, because I can eliminate any problems on this next pass through. All right, those things will just disappear now. So it's just like any other type of painting process. You know, when you get started, you want to try to, obviously it's easier if you do a good job all the way through, right? But if you're going to be obsessed about being perfect, you want to save that energy till the very end of the painting. You know, often people, when they're painting, you know, especially when you're getting started, they spend a lot of time at the beginning being, you know, obsessed with perfection. And what ends up happening is they get kind of bummed out because they see kind of the, you know, happy accidents happening, and they're not happy with the happy accidents, and they get really bummed out, and they may even give up when it just doesn't matter at the beginning about being perfect. Like, no one will see so much. It's still, there's so much left to do that it seems like, to me, kind of like wasted energy. You're not focusing on the kind of the bigger picture. Okay. So my goal in 20 minutes is to be done and wrapped up, so. Okay, so you can see there's places where I'm going to be painting, well, let me see, let's zoom in. Do you see these kind of like little places, right? Where I'm going to cover some of those little areas with paint this next time around. So the kind of the top layer is the most important layer, because that's where we get a chance to hide any of our mistakes that we made along the way. Okay, so let's apply some of the medium. Thank you for the nice comment there, Donna. You say, I love your classes. I don't paint them all, as I made all my Christmas presents, so not much extra time. I painted a mama and baby llama for my granddaughter. Cool. That is so exciting. You know, once you get the bug for painting, it's compulsive. It's of any kind of habit that you could possibly have. Painting is probably the healthiest of all of them. Right? You start wanting to make paintings for everybody, and you start giving people paintings for Christmas, and they're like, yeah, okay, we've got 20 of them already. I'm just kidding. I think most people are pretty happy to receive an original painting from somebody. Even if you give somebody a painting every year. Maybe if it's not, as long as it's not a gigantic one. My parents, my blessed poor parents, have a lot of really big paintings of mine around their house at all times. Like, I think there's nowhere else for them to go except on the walls. Paintings that I made when I was 19, 20 in college, and you know, making big paintings was the thing to do, you know. And then as I got older and moved out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do I do with these big paint canvases? I don't want to like have to where am I going to store these or carry them? No one wants them. Even I can't even give them away. Okay, that looks pretty good. It might not be fully dry as much as I would like, but, you know, I want to try to get things done here ASAP. Okay, so let's, if I look at the original, just trying to bearing in mind that I kind of want some, I guess there is some blue here. Let's just attack this. Why am I obsessing over... I just want to do things as well as I possibly can, right? And there's a little bit of dilly-daddling around. You know, it's really hard, like, when you're... You know, when you hear about a painting took an artist, you know, 400 hours or 10,000 hours, like, you know, this crazy, or it took Leonardo da Vinci 2 years to paint Mona Lisa or something. You're like, wow, like, so he got up like every day, 9 to 5, and he was like, no, of course not. Like, he probably, especially because in that time you'd have to be waiting for days and days, like months maybe, for some of the paints to dry before you could put another layer on them, right? So you'd be working on other things, or just sometimes looking and thinking and trying to figure out what to do next, right? Okay, so I think we're just going to put a little more paint on the palette here. Oops, that's maybe a little much. We'll see. This should be enough to carry us through to the end. You know, it's worth mentioning, again, that these tubes still have maybe at least half the paint is still in these tubes, and we're at episode, what, 30 of 40? So there's, I mean, I could do another 20 episodes and with enough paint there to get me through there. And this cost me $100 worth of paint. And then, like, what, by this point, maybe $100 worth of canvas. $200 for 3 months of a hobby, right? I mean, I can't think of another hobby that is cheaper than that. And so rewarding. Okay, so let's just dive right in here. Michael, why are we diddle-daddling around here? You're procrastinating again. Okay. I started thinking, like, okay, I'm gonna go, well, okay, yes, I am. It'll be interesting, you know, if I play this back at some point, to just sort of see, you know, you saw there was the blue that was leaking through a few places. I'm curious as to if that was the places where I was doing my little scrubbing, thoughtless scrubbing in there. I think it's also the places where I've done a second layer of paint. And so it's more likely that I'm going to be pushing a little bit of paint underneath the tape. And probably as I've been doing, mixing paint on the painting is not helpful either. Because that also adds to, like, the scrubbiness of things. like doing what I'm doing right now, if there's anything that's going to cause that paint to go underneath, like just that really kind of forceful painting, not a good idea. Not a good idea at all, but anyway. I want to be done here in about 10 minutes. So. Again, last week's episode, I really showed a very in-depth way of how to do it really, really well. Today's the episode where I'm going cutting a few corners trying to get things done. I think I'm just going to put some more yellow. Okay. Just want to make sure I got everything covered here. We'll blow dry it, peel off all of the paint, and then we're pretty much done. just going to peel all of these pieces off the back. I'll also say one thing I should be doing, good practice would be to put like a towel down rather than putting it right down onto this like dirty table, so that I'm not likely to get paint from the table, overpaint or overspray onto the front of the painting. But again, as I keep saying, I'm cutting some corners here as I'm going quickly. So let's get these diagonals off. Okay, I think I got all the diagonal ones off. This is why I say put those tabs on there, because these little bits of tape at the very end, imagine I had 10 of these to dig up. This is just a little corner. Okay, so get rid of all this tape in the way. Now, I look at this, and there's a few areas here that are going to drive me absolutely bonkers, right? Like these places where the tape didn't quite make it. So, my options are to retape. I just want to show, maybe it's not quite clear to everybody where some of these problem areas are. You can see this strip right down the side. As I was taping that, I was kind of expecting this to happen there. But there's also a few places, you can kind of see them in here, these little gaps. So, the question is, how much does that drive me nuts? Like, how much am I willing to live with? Let's see, this is the up. Let's just compare them with the original Bridget Riley here. Alright, so obviously the colors are different than hers. The shapes of these diagonals are different. There's a lot of kind of angles and things that I had to kind of, or aspects of this that I cut out just to try to get the painting done in this period of time. But, you know, all in all, I mean, I'm happy. I mentioned that I wasn't going to be able to do this painting completely as I would have liked right when I began. But, you know, I think it actually looks pretty cool. Now that I look at it, there's this I'm going to have to clean this before our next class. But, you know, all in all, that's pretty satisfying. So, the way to ensure that this doesn't happen is just to go slower and be more careful, more methodical when you put that tape down so you get it into the right place. I could try to freehand and paint some of this in. That would be discouraged, because what can start happening is if I don't go in the lines, and I start making a big it could get messy and start looking sloppy and take away from what's the sharp edge quality of the painting, which is, one of the things we like most about it. If probably Bridget Riley, she was painting, I believe, an oil paint. So what I imagine she probably had is pre-mixed paints, like hundreds of little jars. And so if there was, a situation where, I need this blue, okay, well, I'd look on my chart and say, like, blue number 7. Okay, I'll get blue number 7. I got a little brush, and I'll just dip that into the cup and touch that up. Boom. Oh, and I need a little bit of orange number 2. Okay, dip a little, fix orange number. So you can see how having all those pre-mixed colors could really, really help, because trying to mix these colors again, which I could do, but again, it's like there's always a little bit of a balancing act when it comes to any kind of art, is how obsessed with getting perfect do I really want to be. Donna says, you are a bad influence on us. Do like I say, not as I do. I know, totally, right? Like, it looks awesome. The original has a back color or two coming through. In hers, definitely, like, I think, her, I mean, again, I've manipulated the original painting just to make it a little bit easier. If we were to look up this original painting, it's a little bit more complicated than the one that we're looking at right now. And it would probably, up close, I haven't seen this particular painting in person, but I imagine it's actually has a lot of, it probably looks a little bit rougher than it does on a computer screen, right? These are fairly large paintings, so, I can totally live with some of these problems in the paintings here. Again, I'm not so worried about making it perfect. I'd rather get something that's kind of cool and done, and this is something I'm certainly going to be very happy with. All right. And if I was to do this again, if probably I only took an extra hour to really be careful with the placing of the tape, it would have been perfect. But considering in like 2.5 hours, I'm starting an entirely different episode for this course, I'm a little bit more interested in having a little bit more time, getting a little bit of food in my belly. Okay, so, as I said, later on this afternoon, I'm going to be doing the Thomas Kincaid episode, so tune in for that. Please hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Hit the like if you like this episode. It was great being able to have my daughter here and to help create this painting here with her hand painting. I think I am going to do a little bit of additions to this here, and maybe at the beginning of the next episode, I'll kind of just finish that off really quickly. I'll have it all prepped and ready to go so we don't spend a lot of time on it. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for another one of these episodes. I'm really glad I was able to fit this in right before we jump to the next one, so just time-wise, they all kind of fit into a nice little line. We will see you very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.